How does a weary world rejoice? And with that question, hopefully you can hold the tension between the visualization of weariness, tiredness, compared to rejoicing or joy. And the way things are set up these days, you don't have to go very far before you encounter a person, place, or thing that causes you to feel unsettled. As global citizens, we feel the devastation in Palestine and Israel. We still feel that, and we lament. As local residents in the DMV, we hear reports of violence and carjackings, and our hearts are filled with sorrow. And it seems like every day there's another report of something, and we hear that and we feel that. Then when we consider the shortage of affordable homes, the inequality of access to healthy food, and the cost of health care, that combination alone will cause somebody to be weary. And not just weary, but worry, just worry. This is the type of fatigue and exhaustion that often comes from unreasonable and unjust systems. And those systems have a way of weighing you down. These are the external weariness agents. But I want to shine the light on the internal experience, the internal expression of sorrow, anger, frustration, the things we actually carry in our bodies. And sometimes I think it's easier to deal with the external factors because there are times we can see it, we can speak to it, we can do something about it, we can write a letter, protest, march. The external factors are outside of ourselves, and they can even cause us to go into an autopilot mode. But internal factors, the internal longing for something to be, something that has not been, maybe something science will tell you that it can never be, but you still long for it anyway. The internal factor when fear lurks behind every lab report that you're waiting for the results. The disappointment that cannot be articulated with each pregnancy test that does not yield the desired results. And the loneliness that lingers at every holiday party, every work event, or even family gatherings. These internal factors, they hit us differently because we cannot protest our way into intimacy. We cannot bulldoze our way to contentment. Instead, we need to step back, take a deep breath. Everybody breathe in, release, and reevaluate our relationship with the truth. This type of internal turmoil, it requires us to be honest. Now, this is a good moment to examine the text. Luke 1, verses 5 through 23. Zechariah is found in the sanctuary. He is a priest, which means he has entered into the holy place solo. He didn't have fanfare. He didn't have an armor bearer. He didn't have a camera crew. It was none of that. When you went into the temple, you would find the priest and the presence of God. That was the custom. That was the order of the day. The Jewish Mishnah, it's a collection of Jewish oral traditions, and you will kind of match that up with the Torah. The Mishnah explains that while the priest was inside of the tent praying, the people gathered outside of the tent to pray, because they knew that the priest was praying on their behalf and they were waiting on a word from the Lord. They were invested. So they weren't too far off because they wanted to see and hear what God was saying. The process, it wasn't fancy, it wasn't glorious, it was time consuming, and it required the people to literally wait on God. Wait on God. And with all of the customs and all of the responsibilities and all of the traditions that's wrapped up in this text, here comes Gabriel disrupting the moment. He threw all of that out of the door. Disrupt the moment with the annunciation of John to Zechariah. The announcement that John was coming. And in response, Zechariah did not bubble over with exceeding joy. He didn't give thanks for this long overdue, it's about time prayer being answered. He had a comment and he had a question. The comment, he said, I'm old and my wife is getting up there too. Now, I don't really know why he had to throw his wife under the bus like that, because ain't nobody ask you about your wife, okay? But that's what he said. He was like, I'm old and my wife old. I don't know about this. But then he asked, how will I know if this is legit? How will I know that this is really going to happen? How do I know that it's going to manifest this time? Because the last time I prayed, it didn't happen. The last time I asked, ain't nobody say nothing. The last time when I was told to do, I did, but you didn't. How will I know? Is there any way, Brother Zach said, is there any way you can prove it to me before I get my hopes up? Anybody understand this line of questioning? Anybody? Okay, good. I'm not by myself. When you've had certain life experiences, when you've been through hell and high water, when you continue to work through intergenerational trauma, it is not uncommon to ask clarifying questions. Somebody talk back to me. I like that. It's not uncommon to ask questions just to make sure I understand what's being said. When you've gone through some things, when your body starts talking and you ain't said nothing, it's all right to say, but is there any way you can scientifically prove to me that what you said is going to happen? And when we talk about the internal factors of weariness, not only do we need honesty, but we also need clarity. And before we attempt to reveal ourselves to others, we better have a long talk in the mirror to our own selves. Zechariah's question got the ball rolling. Now, some scholars charged him with limited faith, but I disagree. I believe Zechariah's faith was active and it was alive. He was in the temple. He was showing up. He was praying for folk. He kept his word to God. But when it came to the matters of his own heart, he needed a little reassurance. Now consider the narrative from his vantage point. He had been waiting and wandering and wondering. And now, according to Gabriel, at Gabriel's word, he cannot speak until the promise is born. Now, the biblical text does not mention any wrongdoing that Zechariah and his wife Elizabeth had done. We don't read anywhere where they were being punished or penalized in a certain way. I mean, when the angel found the priest, he was maintaining his priestly duties. Yet he left the temple silent. He was in the right place at the right time, and yet his voice was taken from him. On October 30th, Jean, Jana, and I entered into a season of weariness. There were no warning signs. There were no indicators that this season was coming. Suddenly, our worlds were turned upside down when we learned that our Aaron had transitioned into eternal rest. Now, for me and Jean, Aaron had moved from the friend category to the family category many years ago. He and Jean actually met in the first grade. And there's this really cute classroom picture, with the teacher in it of them. I think Aaron referred to them as juice box buddies. I don't actually recall the moment that Aaron and I met. I can't place if it was a party or we were at a church service because we were like church kids. I can't put my finger on it because it's like he was just always there. Jean and I actually met through Aaron. And there are two versions of that story, Jean's version, my version. My version is right, we already know. But we won't get into that right now, it's Advent. 10 years after Jean and I met and married, we had our daughter. Aaron and his wife, Jessica, agreed to be Jana's godparents. And then a year later, Jean and I agreed to be their son's godparents, August. But over the last 33 days, deep sorrow and unmanageable warm tears have caused us to maintain the courage to be honest about the weariness and the wandering in our souls. To tell the truth about where we are in the moment. Not where we are forever, just where we are in that moment. To resist the temptation to fake the funk. To resist the temptation to smile when we don't feel like it. And to be able to say, I am not okay. And in order to do that, you need community. You need folk who you are walking with, and they're walking with you, that you can be transparent, that you can be honest. And unlike Zechariah, we are able to speak, and we are able to laugh, and we are able to tell the story of grace and provision, even when we walk through hard places. So when we feel the burden of weariness, it's okay to hold close holy memory. We take weariness and we bring it in, and then we take holy memory and we bring it close together and we hold them close, tight. We cannot abracadabra our way out of it. It is the human experience that requires us, like Jesus, to walk through it, allowing ourselves to remember what is true, what is noble, what is virtuous, giving ourselves room simultaneously to be human. And I find myself naming the various truths because it's possible for two things to be true at the same time. I am grieving and I am loved. This is hard. And I have a soft place to land. Thank you, God. God, I don't understand. And I am understood by God. It's the and both for me. It feels like night, and I am surrounded by divine light. We must name the truths, all of them, not just one side, but all of the truth, many of the truths. I have some action items for you. I want you to get something to write with or put this in your phone. It's your homework for this season. I mean, why have homework for the week when you can just have homework for the month? And here's some things I want you to be active in your doing. One, identify your weariness. Identify it. Name it. Number two, name your joy. Name your joy. Identify your weariness. Name your joy. Then give yourself permission to cry. I don't even need a tissue. Just give me a big old blanket. Just give me a towel. I just need something big. Just give yourself permission to cry. Give yourself permission to cry and don't even wipe your face. Just let the tears fall. It is a spiritual cleansing when we cry. Jesus cried. Mary cried. Give yourself permission. Make an appointment with a therapist or grief counselor. Make an appointment and then keep the appointment. Make the appointment, keep the appointment, go to the appointment, and then do what the person say do. That last part, right? Jean and I met with our counselor this week, and it was good. It was helpful. It put things in perspective. It allowed us to be open and honest about our grief and how there are places where it looks different from the other person and then places where it's mirroring. Go to the counselor, y'all. Keep the appointment. Then do what they say, okay? Ain't nobody say okay. Okay, great, thanks. Identify your weariness, name your joy, give yourself permission to cry. Make the appointment with the therapist or grief counselor. Make the appointment, keep the appointment, do what they say. And then the last thing, sing a song and move your body. Put some music on. Move your hips. Tap your toe. Wait, do that again. Move your hips, move your hips. Hey, 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 hey. We're going to be in the grocery store like, hey, 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 hey. It's important because we need to move the blood in our bodies. We need to move. We can't get stuck figuratively, literally, emotionally, spiritually. We can't get stuck. We got to move. If we cry together, we will laugh together. We may experience collective pain, but we will also testify to collective healing. Weariness is not the end of the story. We will experience joy, and we will rejoice. I like the way Bell Hooks said it. Rarely, if ever, are any of us healed in isolation. Rarely, if ever, are any of us healed in isolation. Zechariah went home. He couldn't talk, but he and Elizabeth worked it out because John was conceived and born. They worked it out. How does a weary world rejoice? Together. We're going to do it together. Let the church say amen.